Tshwetmik territory situated with the unceded ancestral lands of the Tshwetmik Nation. The TNRD appreciates the partnership that we have with the Kamloops Tshwetmik and respects the territory and land on which we are gathered here today. I will start the meeting this morning. Director Blackwell is not with us in person, so I'd like to appoint that Director Stamer be, and correct, I have to just clarify here, it's not vice chair at the hospital district meeting and legislation, it's called the acting chair. So I'd like to appoint him as the acting chair for this meeting. If I can get a seconder, please.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, like also just to mention that we have Marion Bell here for Director Robin Smith. We have Director Nancy Bethel here for Director Kelly Hall, and we have Yoris Akerton for Director Tricia Thorpe. And so we have a few new faces around here, but we will do our best to remember names as we go and address. And additions or deletions from the agenda. If there's anybody that has anything. No? Thank you. So we'll get an approval of the agenda as presented. So moved. Second by, sorry, who was a seconder? Oh, hang on. Sorry, I see Ms. Campbell.
Chair Riley, just a note that under new business, we'd like to add a motion calling for an additional hospital district meeting in June.
Correct. Yeah, thank you.
you.
I'll be adding that in. Yeah. And we will have time to discuss that under new business. Okay. And we had a seconder, I believe it was Director Middleton. All in favor? Thank you. Okay, and just a couple of things just to start and to keep the meeting flowing today in a somewhat tight manner. I think there's going to be a lot of discussions about a lot of different things, but we want to try and keep it somewhat formatted. So I will ask that any questions around cancer or cancer care in Kamloops be held to section 5.2 under the report from Royal Inland Hospital. And I would ask that operations around rural healthcare be held to 5.3. And that's the presentation on rural. If we can do that, please. That being said, I would like to move item 5.1 up above before we do our actual voting and approval of budget requests. And 5.1 is regarding the surgical suites. And that was a late request from Interior Health. And so I just want to have them to have the floor to have the opportunity to discuss that before we go forward with the money request. So if I could have someone from IH come up, and I don't know if we need a mover. I'm okay with that. That's good. Thank you. Okay, so we'll have IH. I don't know who wants to come to the podium today. Oh,
Chair Riley, do we do the minutes?
sorry. Thank you. Approval of the minutes. Thank you. Second. Thank you. Okay, 5.1 IH.
Good morning. Sorry. Oh, so talk down. Okay, good morning. I'm Diane Kosachuk, the Director of Business Support. Thank you for having me and my colleagues today. I wanted to start with our land acknowledgement. Put that up. Next slide. We recognize and acknowledge that we collectively are gathered on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Tshwetmik Nation. Oh, I have them. Sorry. So as Chair O'Reilly said, this is a late addition request. So this is a request for $1.88 million. The total budget on this is $4.7 million. This is so that we can, excuse me, open 2 more ORs in the old tower. This will give us about 44% more capacity pre-COVID, pre the new tower. and allow us to do roughly about 2,400 additional surgeries a year. Of the 1.88 million, about 85% of it is related to equipment. So I'm not sure if, so in the Royal Land update, there'll be more information on surgical wait lists, et cetera.
Do we have any questions regarding the 1.8 million? Director Bass.
Thank you. I'm just curious, and I'm obviously going from very little knowledge here, but when you were planning the Gallardi Tower, were there not wait lists then? Like my understanding is there have been surgical wait lists for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
Because I've been on some of them.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering why this wasn't addressed at that time. And why we're having to deal with it now, you know, why you moved some and closed some when you knew you had a long wait list to begin with.
You want to?
I can,
Okay.
so I can help answer that question a little bit. So many of you probably had seen our older ORs and they were old and they were smaller size. So as we were planning the Gallardi Tower, the new ones are big and they're beautiful. And that was part of the plan, was to leave the that area, I'll say, open for renovations, because the area does need a refresh. So and then it'll help with increasing our ORs overall, which then will help with increasing our surgeries, which decreases our surgical wait list. And I have a graph to show you later in my presentation that our wait lists are kind of trending in the right direction. Still lots of work to do, but that's the rationale, is really to use that space to its fullest capacity. It needs a refresh.
Director Sarai.
Thank you, Chair. My question is, the 11 ORs that are running, are they up to capacity with staffing and doctors that we can warrant 2 more opening? Because if they're not running at full capacity, I'm having concerns of funding 2 more when the other ones are sitting idle waiting for staff.
So we've opened the 11th OR. So the 10th OR opened with the Phil and Jetty Gallardi Tower. That would have been kind of, I'll say, August-ish. And then we opened the 11th OR in January. We're opening 2 days a week with increasing those services. And you're right, there is some human resource challenges with anesthesia, but they have been able to support the program. We're continuing to recruit. We just hired 8 new registered nurses for the OR. So again, it is a bit around recruitment. It'll be a little bit with human resource, but really we need to continue to move forward over the next fiscal year to open up OR 12 and 13.
Supplemental.
Sorry, did I hear the ORs that just opened up are only open 2 days a week?
Well, we've started opening them 2 days. We did what we call it like a soft opening. So what we did is opened OR 11 2 days a week. Sometimes we're able to do more days depending, and then we'll increase that as our human resource increases.
Director Bapple.
Director Sarai asked my question.
Thank you. See no further questions. Thank you. Oh, sorry, we have Director Rain.
Sorry, I'm still somewhat confused. How often are the existing operating rooms being used? I mean, is that 16 hours a day, 24 hours a day, 8 hours a day, or some days a week?
No, most ORs do not run 24/7. So most operating theaters run kind of like a Monday to Friday, anywhere from a 7 to 3 or 4. And then in the evenings, we keep a couple open for emergency services through that. And of course, on the weekend, they're always available for emergencies. And so we always have an on-call team to support that. But most ORs run more of a Monday to Friday, kind of a 7 to 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, and I guess the question that's related to that is then,
Supplemental.
if there is weekend time, we're saying we don't have staff to work on weekends, therefore those are empty, but it warrants capital expenditure for new operating rooms.
Correct. And so what I'll do is help. So there's different type of, I'll say OR slate. So there's the elective slate. So that's kind of stuff that people are put on routinely. There's also emergent slate. So that's, for example, someone may need an emergency C-section. So this will help kind of build the program around our emergency care. It also helps support our ambulatory care unit with more advanced procedures as well. So it's really just giving us more space to do the work that we need and then recruit folks to help support the work.
Thank you. Director Roden.
Thank you. How long approximately is it going to take to get these two operating rooms up to operating speed, if you will?
As we continue to recruit, I would anticipate definitely over the next year, we would be looking at 12 and 13, probably looking at targeting kind of, I'll say over the next 18 months, because you do have to recruit in advance, which we've started to do.
Sorry, supplemental,
Supplemental.
if I may, so I just meant in terms of the actual physical space itself, getting it outfitted and up to the point where you could have staff lined up out the door, but they still can't go in there and operate because it's not ready to be used as an operating theater. And so the point I'm getting at is that while all that work is happening to physically get the space ready, the recruiting is ongoing. It's not
Yes,
as if the spaces will be ready tomorrow, but we don't have staff.
Correct.
Thank you. Director Getz.
Thank you, Chair. Question, do you keep records of Royal Inland Hospital is considered our centralized hospital? Do you keep records of non-centralized communities that use these ERs and what their wait times are? And if these new operating suites would help with the out of towner situation rather than just the local centralized area? I hope it's not a loaded question, but I'm curious.
So the surgical wait lists are monitored quite closely by our surgical network. Of course, we always want to try and provide service the best we can closest to home. So we do have some operating theaters in our smaller communities. So what can be done there locally is done there locally. And then what we need to do at Royal Inland, we bring into Royal Inland.
Supplemental.
Don't want to seem mystified here, but what smaller communities have operating suites? Because we certainly don't.
I would say, so for example, Caribou Memorial.
So what would be the opposite? Would there be a possibility to have one in the Merritt area?
I can't speak to that. That's definitely out of my scope and purview in regards to where we'll be opening up our.
Oh, I'm glad to hear
So
that.
I can take that away.
That'll be my next question. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. So I have Laird, Newspater, Stamer, Middleton. We'll go Director Laird.
My question's around if this funding is approved, when are you looking at starting construction and when will it be completed?
That's a great question. I'll have to get back to you on the specific details.
Director Newspater.
Thank you, Chair. Further to Director Rain's question, I'm curious what the barrier is to using the existing ORs to their full capacity, expanding hours. They're obviously fully operational and equipped. Why wouldn't we just use those to their maximum ability as opposed to making another large capital investment when we're uncertain about staffing, about whether it would improve these wait lists? Why wouldn't we use what we have to its fullest capability?
So when you speak to, I'll say physicians, most of them want to do surgeons. They would like to do their work during the day hours. And so it helps really help them to sustain their practice, give the best care, give quality care. We know that's when the whole teams are there. And so really we are working towards filling, like the ORs are fully running, and we'll work to fully run OR 11 as well.
Supplemental.
So what I'm hearing is that you're saying that if we were to expand the hours, if you were to expand the hours that's operational for, you believe that the staff would protest that and not be willing to come in during those other operational hours?
So I'm not saying
instead-
that they would protest. I'm
That's probably
saying there's for recruitment and retention, we work with our teams to for the best scheduling that we can and to support patient care.
And I understand that, but to a capital cost of this extent, not being sure whether we would even be able to staff those additional ORs, it seems like it might be a more prudent move to see if we could expand the hours of the existing pieces, especially when we're unsure if we'll be able to staff those anyway.
I hear what you're saying, and we've explored that as well, but it also this gives us more space to do the work that we need to support ambulatory care and support the volumes that we need to support.
So just a final supplemental. So am I hearing that that hasn't been explored before this was proposed?
Sorry, say that again.
Am I hearing that that hasn't been explored, expanding hours and using these ORs that are existing to their maximum capacity before this was?
We have explored that with the teams, but we are moving towards needing more space to provide service.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go to Director Stamer, Director Birch Jones, I just want to acknowledge that I do have you on the speakers list. You're coming up after Director Middleton. Director Stamer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is there any cancer surgery that is being performed right now in this scope? And is there also going to be an increase going forward?
So we've been performing cancer surgeries for a number of years. Lots of folks require surgery in regard to cancer. So that's always been part of care.
And if I may supplemental, to staff, so what's our overall impact going to be on our 2023-2024 budget? We approve this addition.
So can you repeat that question? Sorry, I didn't like.
Well, I want to know what if we're going to be approving the 1.88, what's that going to be on the overall impact to our 2023-2024 budget? Like
In
our
terms of cash flow? Yeah,
staff.
Dr. Fox?
Thank you through to the board. So my understanding is the 40% for TNRD is the 1.8 million. Right now, that is captured under the capital and equipment new requests for 2023. So it adds a $1.8 million. Yeah, plus the additional. So if you were to go to the capital bylaw, which we'll touch on next, it has a breakdown of the numbers within that report of getting to the 5,036,000. Part of that is the 3.3 million of the major capital plus the 1.8 minus 240 to get to that overall over 100,000 for major capital.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that will be coming up shortly for a deeper discussion. Director Middleton.
Thank you. Director Newstater asked a few of the questions that I was going to ask, but so this comes down really quite, if we were just to break it down really to an HR issue of staffing and the hours that the staff is willing to work. But is there also a second component to that, to the supporting staff around the ORs, like recovery rooms and other issues where even if we had those rooms operating, would we have the recovery room staff and other support staff available to meet that sort of increase in operating?
Yeah, so you'll see later in my presentation, staffing is improving. Again, we still have challenges. We always try to maximize our space and the staff that we have. That's always our first goal. I can tell you right now, PAR in its current state, it will expand in its footprint, is fully staffed. We have 2 of our surgical units. The manager's done an excellent job recruiting, so we have increased staff. So I'll say things are trending in the right direction in regards to that, to able to provide service.
Thank you. And Director Birch Jones to close. Director Birch Jones, if you're speaking, if you can unmute yourself, please.
There we go.
Thank you.
Getting a message that the host had to unmute. Thank you, Chair O'Reilly, and I'm in support of this. I feel that the OR program at Royal Inland has been extremely good in the past, and I'd like to see it being all that it can now and in the future. What we have in Lillooet is people requesting referrals to Chilliwack because Fraser Health is just so fast at getting them in and getting their surgeries done, hips and knees and things like that. I would like to see our referral hospital being our main referral hospital. So I do support this, but I do have a question. You mentioned the outlying ORs, and Lillooet has one, and we've been spending money on it. And I just wondered if you could provide a short update on when or if we're going to use that facility. Thank you.
Sorry, I think I'm gonna have to come back. I don't cover Lillooet. Kathy's very new in her role, so we can take this question away and provide an answer after.
Thank you. So see no further questions. For those following along at home, we are now moving back to 4.1, and I will ask CFO Fox.
Thank you, Chair O'Reilly. Sorry for my parchedness. So we are just looking at today, we've already approved the minor capital bylaw 159 for $940,000 in January. So we've brought back the major capital request from IHA. They presented a list of major capital initiatives over $100,000. I have broken it down within the report just to show that the original request of 3.39 million was included. The additional, as they've just presented, the $1.8 million, and a request to have the $240,000 reduced from that total for a total of $5,036,000, which has been included in the financial plan that you'll see next. So I will leave it at that and open it up for questions or your discussion. Thank you.
Any questions for CFO Fox? No? Director Rain.
Thank you. I'm not an accountant, but leasing is an operational cost or a capital cost?
So leasing in general is an operational cost. All these costs that flow through the hospital district financials are not capital owned by the TNRD. So it's all generally treated as operating.
Director Bass.
I guess supplemental to that.
Sorry, supplemental Director Rain.
Yeah, I mean, I note that there is in the capital list, there's several leasing situations, and I thought you were going to answer the way you did. Because certainly, my experience in business is if you're leasing, it's operational. But are other hospital authorities funding leasing?
CFO Fox.
Thank you, Chair O'Reilly. So I have not had the time in my period of time here to research other regional districts, hospital districts. It is certainly something that I can look into and bring back to the board, but I don't have that information at this time.
Thank you. And Director, my understanding is that if it weren't to be leases, there would be a very large capital request to build new buildings, and that would be a much heavier tax burden for the hospital district to be paying our 40%. And so given how dynamic the healthcare industry is, it actually is easier, is more flexible for us to keep up to the changing demands of healthcare industry. But I look forward to CFO Fox coming back to us on that. I will go to Director Bass.
So it's a procedural question here, because the request is to adopt everything in here. And I have a concern with the request for the additional surgical suites. So how would we deal with that? Because I have no issue voting for most of this. I do have an issue in voting yes for that.
General Manager Campbell.
Thank you through the chair to Director Bass. So I would recommend that the board move first and second reading of the bylaw. And then should there be any changes proposed, those can take place after second reading, if the board supports that.
Thank you. See no further questions. We need someone to remove recommendations. We'll go Director Roden. Director Getz. And this is recommendation 1, correct? Thank you. All in favor of recommendation 1. All opposed? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to recommendation 2.
So moved.
Moved by Director Roden, second by Getz. Oh, see, General Manager Campbell.
The second recommendation is third reading, and so we shouldn't, if there are going to be any changes, third reading should not be read. The bylaw should not be read a third time yet.
Correct, but there's time for discussion at this point, whether we want to.
So there should be discussion after, now that we've had first and second reading. Then discussion can happen. If there's any changes, those would need to happen before the bylaw is read a third time.
Thank you. Director Bass and Director Sarai.
Then I'd like to amend it in whatever way is appropriate. from the corporate officer to remove the amount for the surgical suites until we can actually get more answers and more clarity on what is actually needed here and what's going on.
Second by Councillor Sarai. Discussion on the amendment. Councillor Bethel.
I agree that there's a lot of uncertainty in terms of the staffing. I think that in terms of what we can leverage, all we can leverage is capital. It doesn't seem to me that we have direct control over how they do their staffing. And so I would take this opportunity to get the surgical spaces, because that will encourage other specialists to come to Kamloops and to start their practices. If they don't feel that they have adequate space to do their practice, they may end up in Kelowna. And if you look at the differences between the number of vacancies in Kelowna and the number of vacancies in Kamloops, it's clear we have a hard time recruiting across all different types of disciplines in IHA compared to Kelowna. And having that extra surgical space available, I think would make us a more attractive place for different types of medical staff.
Councillor Sarai, O'Reilly, New Stater, Sal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I respect Director Beppel's comments there. Where I have trouble is if you build it, they will come. Hasn't come to fruition yet because of the staffing and the recruitment. And if we're only running we want daytime hours, and we got a backlog. Our residents and outlying residents aren't concerned if they get a surgery at 8 o'clock in the morning to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They'll come in the evening because they want to get better. They want to get healthier. They want that surgery. And if we've got OR rooms that are sitting empty 12 hours out of the day, 5 days out of the week, let's get those up and running and sort out the backlog. And then as you move forward, you can recruit and you can see the improvements happening. But by jumping ahead and spending $2 million on something that we may be using in the future because we want to address more daytime surgery hours, I have a little bit of a concern with that. I think we should fix what we have now and to see if the recruitment drive that we've been hearing about is actually successful.
Thank you. I'm next on the speakers list. I will not be supporting the amendment. I think at this time, if we look at percentage, the ORs are, from the numbers we heard today, are running close to 90 to 95%. And if we do approve it today, the operating rooms are not going to be open tomorrow. It takes time and to be planning ahead for this. I think it's going to be welcomed. And as much as we talk about prime time and the people getting the surgeries don't care, I think we may be hard pressed to try and attract surgeons that will practice at 1 a.m. in the morning. And so I think having this will help us with future plans and growth. So I will not be supporting the amendment. We'll go to Councillor Sal.
Thank you, Chair. You guys have made very good points before I put up my hand. Like Director Beppel, I'm in favor of this because as we know, things aren't getting any cheaper. If we look, years down the road, our population is growing and we're going to need these ORs anyways. If they sit dormant, I believe they're not going to be that much of a operating expense for us, but at least we lock in that cost right now rather than wait down the road when it's going to cost like $6 million. And about the operating hours, no surgeon wanting to work, we're also have to factor in the staff were saying the emergency slate as well for those services to have capacity for that. So just my comments.
And Director Roden to close.
Thank you. Yeah, the number of seniors in our area is increasing. The requests for elective surgeries are not going to go down. They're simply going to keep increasing. As Director South says, the cost of building anything is not going to get cheaper. And one of the reasons that the Ashcroft Hospital and the Clearwater Hospital struggled to maintain emergency room hours is because people did not want to work the overnight shifts. I've worked graveyard shifts. I enjoyed it when I was in my early 20s, but I was not performing surgery on people. I was working at a hotel. So I don't know that someone is going to be at their best surgically at 3 in the morning or 1 in the morning. And we hear a lot about healthcare workers wanting that quality of life. They want that work-life balance. I would suspect you will have difficulty attracting surgeons to any operating room, no matter how new it might be, if they're told that they will be working from midnight till 8 in the morning. And not even mentioning all the support staff, the healthcare, the registered nurses, et cetera. If we can't get people to come to an emergency department in Ashcroft or Clearwater overnight, good luck staffing a surgical suite in Kamloops.
Thank you. Director Getz, he gave me a signal that it might be a really little comment, so Director gets to close now.
Just really quick, following up on Director Bass and Director Nurstader's comments. The numbers are not here to support. All of us sitting here are responsible for the taxpayers in our areas. People want to know these numbers, want to know if it's correct. I am in favor of the ORs, but I'm not in favor of moving it without those numbers so we can actually see what they are. As again, we're representing people who pay taxes and they will be asking, why did you do this without those numbers? So I will be voting on this amendment as it sits.
Thank you. So I'll call the vote on the amendment, and I will ask that everyone please keep their hands up until we have a full count from the corporate officer. So all of those in favor of the amendment. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Director Campbell.
Thank you, Chair O'Reilly. I'm going to just roll call, if that's okay, just because this is a weighted vote. And so our recording secretary will need to ensure that she's accurately capturing the votes. So.
Yeah, and sorry, can I have somebody, can you please repeat the amendment as we'll be voting on?
So moved by Director Bass, seconded by Director Sarai, that we remove the amount from the capital funding bylaw in the amount of $1.88 million for additional operating rooms.
So do your call?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All in favor of the amendment?
So we have
Oh,
Director Stanky,
sorry.
Director Getz, Director Morris, Director O'Connor, Director Laird, Director Sarai. Marion, sorry, I'm forgetting your
Bell.
last name, alternate Director Marion.
Director Bell.
Director Bell, Director Rain. Director Bass, of course, Director Newstader, Director Grenier, your Director, alternate Director, yours. And is there anyone on the screen that's in favor?
Thank you.
Okay, and then we'll just need the opposed to.
Okay, all opposed.
Okay, so we've got. Oh, Director McNally, are you opposed? Director McNally, Director Roden, Director Onslow, alternate Director Beppel, Director Smith, Director Middleton. I'm missing Director Chair O'Reilly, Director Stamer, Director Sal. Can you help me? People directing. Director Houghton. Director Hayward, Director Graham, Director Hammer Jackson, Director Lepso, and I missed John.
And John.
Yeah.
And please say the names online. Oh, I'm sorry. And then we've got
Oh, and Director
everybody online.
Simpson.
Blackwell.
Okay. Okay, it's defeated. We got you, Director Birchstones. And
So the
Director
amendment
Kumar and
is-
Director Simpson.
The amendment is defeated. So that leads us back to recommendation 2 as presented in the report. Moved by
Second.
Director Ranto, second by Director Roden. All in favor? Discussion. Director Stamer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with what was said previously on the amendment. Unfortunately, it seems like we have a real challenge when it comes to our operating rooms, and I agree with what was said in the fact that it's not just necessarily they want to work Monday to Friday, but there's also all the other logistic issues that come into play, including people trying to get people to and from those, those operating rooms during the day. If there's any other subsequent treatment that has to be done because of the surgery that may have been unplanned. And I don't like getting surprises like anybody else, but I agree with Director Sal, Dr. Sal, that yeah, it's an honorary title, but unfortunately, he's right that it's not going to get any cheaper. And if we have the opportunity to increase our capacity for this amount of money, I begrudgingly will accept it.
Seeing no further discussion, all of those in favor? All those opposed? But the records state that Director Akering is opposed. Oh, and Director Rain. Thank you. I'll move on to recommendation 3.
So moved.
Moved by Director Stabler, second by Director Gates. Any discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Carried. Thank you. And we will now move to 4.2 and we'll have CFO Fox. Thank you.
Thank you, Director O'Reilly. So today I'm introducing the financial plan bylaw for the years 23 to 27. I wanted to take the time to take you through a short PowerPoint presentation. I know how important it is to bring you guys the information in an understandable fashion, the hospital district being a bit unique, and also giving the public and constituents an opportunity to see and hear the information as well. So some of this may not be new information to you, but hopefully it's a reminder of what we're here doing. So the board and boundaries, I won't go through this in too much detail, but generally we're established, acquire, construct, enlarge, operate and maintain hospitals and hospital facilities, grant need for establishment, acquisition, reconstruction, enlargement, operation and maintenance of hospitals and facilities. What we have done here at the TNRD is incorporate a cost share of 40%, which is incorporated into the plan. And we support capital improvement projects, major capital equipment, provide annually towards minor equipment. The 5-year plan before you, I'm focusing on the 2023 budget, which is consists of debt payments of $8.9 million. Capital projects carry forward from previous of $3.3 million. Patient care tower expenditures to continue to be paid out this year of $18,563,000. Minor capital requests for $940,000, major capital equipment of $5,036,000, and leaving transfer to capital reserve to replenish the reserve balances of $12,704,000. There is, as we stated before, temporary borrowing amount consisting of principal and interest payments of $1 million, which has a bylaw to support it, and it is to support in case funds aren't available and transferred to the hospital district and we're required to continue to make the debt payments. It allows us to access borrowing very quickly in those circumstances and not have to go through a bylaw process. In my reflection of the financials over the past few years, it has not been used, but it is there in case we need it. And administration costs of $75,000, which are there to cover the board expenditures, and there's some recruitment costs that get covered each year. And we haven't topped out the $75,000 from what I can see in the actuals. We're about 3/4 of the way there. The budgeted revenues, which directly offset the expenditures to bring forward a balanced budget. There's taxation of $16.3 million included in that. Transfers from reserves of 16 million, surplus carry forward of 18 million, interest, anticipated interest earnings of 100,000 for a total of $50 million to offset the overall expenditures. So this is a budget that I inherited. I did, in my short time coming here, try to stay consistent with the practices that they brought forth previously and for the amounts that they committed to the patient care tower, the debt contributions, the reserve contributions. So I'm also learning as I go. I will do my best at the point that I stop here to answer any of your questions. But I did play it safe this year and try to just remain consistent with the practices that they were following previously. What I also have been trying to do is give a broader or a bigger conversation around the impact on taxation. This conversation is a little bit easier than my TNRD conversation when I have many services. This is just one. So this is a nicer conversation to have. So overall, you can see if you really were one of the people that want to dive in and understand how your taxes are calculated, this is what we call a tax requisition of what we give. So the $16.3 million of taxation, you can see in yellow highlighted at the top. Basically, the assessment comes in, it is broken down between classes. You see on the far right, residential, utility, supportive housing. A quick analysis of that is that we take those assessments and we use a conversion, which basically shows that a resident will pay 0.1 and a utility customer will pay 0.35. So essentially what that means is utility customers pay 3.5 times more than a resident will pay to make up the total requisition. So this just breaks down under that dollar share column, how much each category is paying towards that $16.3 million. So it's not to make you an expert on this. It's just to give you a general idea of how to break down the numbers and what's happening. I can tell you that the residential assessments did go up, but the utility assessments and the business assessments went up quite a bit, which in turn affects the residents because that puts less of the burden on the residents. So although we built in a 1.5% increase in the tax requisition, which was previously decided to make sure we're replenishing those capital reserves, as you can imagine, even the patient care tower borrowing $130 million and the amount of that to have a good reserve when we're supporting large projects like that is really important to reduce the burden on the taxpayers. If you think of that, that's $4 million worth of interest and payments. I think overall it's $8 million a year. So just trying to be fiscally responsible by making sure we're putting money back into the reserves year over year. So overall, the residents should see a bit of a decrease as far as what the residents pay. In turn, that means your utility customers and your businesses are paying a little bit more because their assessments went up. The other thing to consider in here is that if the residential assessments increased due to growth, which some of that is growth, that would mean that 8 residents were paying the bill before, 10 residents are paying the bill this year. That means the 8 are getting a little bit of a reduction because there's more of a tax base to pay those taxes. So that's my simplified explanation of that right now. So the information here is just really giving you an idea. You're not going to intake this information right now. I don't expect that, but it just shows between 22 and 23, the change in your assessment values and really that the share split that goes down for the residents, giving a little bit of a break there. So overall, the total 2022 assessments were, well, I really don't want to read that number out to you. So I'm just going to say 15.7% higher for 23. We have reserves right now, the temporary reserve of $1 million, and then it gains interest year over year. just sits there, and that's to cover any shortfalls that's required, and it's not tapped into. You can see in 2020, which I actually did this at the end of the year. Last year, as I transferred out of one high interest account by accident because they're very close in number. So it was just showing that at the end of the year, they did a transfer. They realized that it was transferred incorrectly and they put it back. It just happened over year end. So it's from one year to the next. So I just wanted to make sure you guys understood what that was going there. And we have an overall capital reserve that you can see was at 127,000, and it's been drawn down over the years. And then as interest rates have gone up, we've been able to put more money back into that reserve. And as you can imagine, sometimes capital projects are completed and they didn't spend as much as they required, or they removed capital projects. I think like the MRI machine got removed. So what we anticipated to spend is not occurring. So sometimes we end up with more money at the end of the year with the ability to put money back into the reserve. So just giving you a sense that I want to give you the idea of there's a $128 million loan here. The principal and interest payments are quite high. It is really important with capital projects, unlike an operating budget, where it can stay fairly consistent year over year. Capital budgets swing very much, and this pretty much is a capital budget that we're trying to manage and make sure we have enough finances for and be fiscally responsible. So having things like temporary borrowing and the ability to put large amounts in reserves can disappear very quickly on us if we're not prudent. So overall, this is the budget request over $100,000, and you'll see that in your budget package. This is the request previously approved under $100,000 that's in the financial plan. And I'm not going to go through all this. I just put it in there for backup if there was any questions. So hopefully that wasn't too overwhelming of a budget presentation. And I gave you a little bit of information that helped understand the numbers within the plan. I will stop there and turn it over to you.
Thank you. Before we move, we're starting with Councilor Newstater. Can you just clarify utilities? You said there's more shifted into utility under the assessment. Can you please clarify that? And then we'll go to Councilor Newstater.
Thank you, Chair O'Reilly. So the classes are broken down into residential, farm, business, major business, light industry, and utility. From my understanding, and I'm like, where's Jamie? I'm pretty sure there's the pipeline is the major component of the large utility increase.
Thank you for that clarification. Director Newstater.
Thanks to the chair, to Director Fox. I just had a point of clarification in the summary. I think it may just be a typo, but the third sentence in an average assessed house of 600,000 in 2022 paid $205.32, and in 2022 will pay $176.58 due to growth in assessment. Is that meant to read 2023? Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. Seeing no further questions, anybody online? No. Director Bethel.
Thank you. Through the director, you stated that the admin cost included recruitment. So was that within the TNRD, or what do you mean by recruitment?
Okay, I'll give you my little snippet and then I'll turn it over to CEO Hildebrandt. The recruitment costs, from my understanding, is that there was a board direction to support some recruiting of new physicians. So sometimes they get passes to things, or a hotel or some transportation that gets covered within there. It is not a large amount that goes through there, but I will turn it over to CEO Hildebrandt.
CEO Hildebrandt.
Thank you, Chair O'Reilly. She's explained it quite well. It's basically a small pot of money that's enables us to work with the foundation to help recruit physicians with some of their expenses when they come in and out and exploring the area.
So supplemental. So I just see, especially for Merritt and for Clearwater, for Ashcroft and some of the smaller places that really are struggling. Is there any way that the people, the directors in those locations can have input into some of that, how those funds or those supplements are being used?
Thank you through the chair to Director Beppel. We can certainly look at that and work with the foundation to see if that can be expanded, but I believe they do make it as broad as they can, but we'll certainly we'll follow up with that question and provide an answer back to you.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions, we've got 3 recommendations in front of us.
Recommendation 1.
Moved by Director Ranta. Second by Councilor Newstater. All in favor? Opposed? Oh. Director Demare, were you opposed or in favor? Sir? In favor? Yeah, thank you. Just wanted to clarify. Okay, we're on recommendation 2. Moved by Director Sarai. Second by Director Smith. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Carried. Recommendation 3. Sorry, I heard a voice, but I don't know where the Director gets. Second Director Middleton, all in favor. Perfect. And with that, we have reduced the hospital tax for the average residents in the TNRD of $28.74 a year. So this is a good day and a rare day, I think. So it's something. Hopefully, that's the headline in the media later today. Thank you. Thank you. We will now move into 5.2, presentation on Royal Inland Hospital updates. And I'm not sure who from IH wants to speak. Thank you.
Sorry, a little sliding thing. Little slide. Oh, yeah, thank you. Yep, that's great. Thanks. Great. Thank you very much. I think we'll just jump right in. Most people know me. So I do like this slide. I know we've seen it before, but it does help kind of show I'll say the busyness of the organization. Of course, the aim is to help improve the health of the entire population and reduce health inequities. Just a reminder, we provide a number of services. So primary and community care, mental health, substance use, public health, acute facilities, long-term care, allied health, lab, medical imaging, pharmacy. And then it also takes a lot of support to run this organization. So human resource, medical affairs, professional practice office, financial services, housekeeping, foods, laundry, digital health, research, and communication. So I always say it does take a village. We also have our Aboriginal partners. So in our region, we have 54 distinct First Nation communities, 7 nation territories, 15 distinct Métis chartered communities. And for the Thompson-Nicola Health Service Delivery Area, we have a population of about 250,000 that we serve, over 120,000 square kilometers. So it just gives you an idea the depth and the breadth of what we need to do. I want to talk a little bit about the emergency department. It's a busy little place. We see 195 visits every 24 hours. Of course, we see a variety of presentations through that emergency department, and we know they're under renovations. Those renovations I'll talk a little bit about in a couple of slides here. I'll give a phase 2 update. We have great support from our urgent primary care center. They've been busy as well, and they help to offload some of the visits from the emergency department. I put on here our trauma service. And first I'll say, yes, we've been providing trauma care for a number of years and we do it well. But we did put in a trauma service. And what this helps is really to coordinate care for those individuals. So what would happen before is they'd come in and often they would have a general surgeon, orthopedic surgeon, maybe even a neurosurgeon. They'd have lots of folks looking after them. And this really what it does is it puts one physician in charge of the care, the trauma physician, to really coordinate all those services that that individual needs. It also put in some supporting structures to help that individual as well as they go through the healing journey. So we also have addition of allied health. So we have some physio, respiratory therapists. We have a psychologist, social worker that really works as a coordinated team with the trauma nurse coordinator and the physician to provide that care to that individual. Next one. I also wanted to show a little bit about our transfer volumes. Again, busy, people are moving through our system. We do have our IH patient transport office. This helps coordinate our transportation issues and move our folks through the system, both internally and externally. And then, of course, we have our partners, BCEHS, that assist us as well. But we are moving a lot of folks through the system. I do like to highlight our heart team. This team is really important to our rural folks. This is a team that's a registered nurse, critical care trained, respiratory therapist, and then a driver. So if there is someone that is in need of being transported to Royal Inland Hospital and need a higher level of care, this team can go out to that site, pick up that individual with BCHS and bring them back to Royal Inland. What this does is prior to this inception, this team, which has been around for a while, and you'll see in the next slide, they are busy. What would happen before is often a nurse or a doctor would actually have to leave that rural community to be transported with that patient. And that doesn't occur. You don't hear that happening very often at all. So that's one of the advantages of our high acuity team. And I'm just going to flip to the next one. You can see our Royal Inland team is busy. Again, they're moving a lot of folks through the system and really providing care to those high acuity patients that need to be brought to Royal Inland Hospital. This slide I wanted to talk a little bit about too, since the hot topic is surgery. As you can see, what the takeaway from this is things are trending in the right direction. So you can see when the 10th OR opened, and I don't think we squeezed on the 11th OR opening in January. And what I can tell you is in the next one as well, I'm going to go to this one. Again, trending in the right direction. We are moving, we are getting more people through the system. Is there lots of work to do? Absolutely. But what I'm very happy with is we are getting some volumes through there. And what I can tell you, to recruit and retain folks, I need modern facilities. So the other one, we have our ambulatory care unit. Again, just wanted to show the volumes. Again, our teams are doing great. They're above target. So for endoscopies, I think many individuals, again, have been for a colonoscopy. It's part of sometimes pre-screening care for cancer, that kind of thing. Excuse me. Tickle my throat. And then also there's other endoscopies that need to be completed, and the teams have really pushed through some volume there as well. So there was these staffing announcements made, I think it was kind of in the fall, I think. Time passes so quickly. Again, I'm going to say it takes a village. There was investment. We often talk about nurses and doctors, but we actually need support team members as well. So support services did get a bump as well to help recruit and retain folks. Here's a little bit of kind of the hiring over the last few fiscal periods. Again, I want to talk a little bit about a program that we piloted at Royal Inland Hospital. It was started in long-term care. It's called the Health Career Access Program. And what it is it gives individual a chance to enter into healthcare. They get paid work, they get training, they get education, they do return service agreement, and at the end they can work as a healthcare aide. So we will continue on getting those individuals into the system to help with recruitment and retention. I wanted to talk a little bit about what we've been doing around emergency operations. So at the beginning of January, this has kept us a little bit busy. It has concluded. However, there was a keen focus on access and capacity. And so really the teams came together to make sure that the system, people were moving through the system. And you can see there the work that was carried out with different teams and some of the goals that were trying to be achieved there, really working with our community partners, home health, and working right across the system. And so what I can say about the EOC, all health authorities were in an EOC structure up until probably about the end of February, beginning of March. And now that work has transitioned to regular operations with to help us really to support that time when we were seeing influenza, RSV, COVID. It seems like a while ago, but there was a busy period around Christmas heading into January where the system was extremely busy. Phase 2. So lots of construction, again, phase 2, post anesthetic room, which is on our 4th floor. That's fully demolished and they're working in there, putting in framing, electrical, that kind of thing. And you can see the timeline there, and it'll be an increase to 28 bays. If you have more ORs, you need more bays. Pediatric department renovation, it's just completing demolishing, and again, more construction in there. Morgue renovation, this is again part of care that we provide, and it definitely needs some renovation there. And so again, that work is well underway. And then, of course, we've heard about the emergency department. Again, it will double in footprint and have a number of new private treatment spaces, new entrance, new triage, improved mental health spaces. So that's quite exciting for that area. Oh, sorry. Oh. I don't think I have control over that. Sorry, can I go back? Oh, is that? I don't know. Oh, right. Okay. Approximately summer 2027, spring, summers, yeah. Okay. There, and then accreditation. So accreditation is an ongoing process of evaluation with a quality and safety focus. This process provides an independent third-party assessment of our organization using standards created from latest research and best practice, and is validated by organizations across the world. The evaluation of our services against these standards measures our performance and helps identify opportunities for improvement. And it's really about continuous quality improvement. And this just occurred at the first week of March. And I can tell you that Interior Health did well, and we'll be waiting for the final report.
Thank
Some
you.
whole questions? Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Executive Director Rennie. I have for the speaker list so far, I have O'Reilly, Bass, Middleton. As I prefaced at the beginning, if there were any questions regarding cancer care, this may be the appropriate time to do that. And I ask that you keep it to one question with one supplemental, and then we'll go around. I'll write down names in a second. So I just want to start for my question just regarding the Cancer Center business case, the funding request to reduce the funding that came forward. Is that in any way going to delay a cancer center coming to Kamloops by removing that funding for the business case?
Sorry, Chair, can you just repeat that question again? I think I missed the first part, I think, a little.
Thank you. There was a request to reduce our funding contribution of $240,000 for a cancer center business case. And I'm just wondering, is that going to delay the cancer center being built in Kamloops?
So what I can answer that is there's ongoing planning for the concept and business plan. Nothing has been approved, but the work is continuing in behind.
Thank you. And supplemental to that, I think this board as a whole and the board before us and the board before that, we have to look forward to the future. And we made a very big decision here today of spending $1.8 million to plan for future growth. And I think that's part of our duty as a board is healthcare as a whole in this community. And I think to put our minds at ease, and what's on the minds is if a cancer center is going to be built somewhere in the Royal Inland Hospital area, is that it not be built in an area where we have approved our master plan for Royal Inland Hospital, and it will not prevent us from phase 3 of the Royal Inland Hospital master plan. Are you able to let this board know that it won't impede our future growth and the needs for our city?
So what I can tell, there's planning occurring, and that's part of the concept plan and the business plan, and that's underway right now. And I'm going to have to come back and say that's not been approved. I can definitely take that away and inform the group.
Thank you. Director Bass.
I wish you hadn't restricted us to 2 questions. I have 3. Okay. First one on the ER renovations not being complete till 2027. I unfortunately have spent way too many hours in the last 10 days in your ER. It's a war zone.
Yep.
And I'm curious how much of that chaos is because of the renovations and how much isn't, and how it's going to be relieved as you go forward in finishing these rentals. For example, I have a son in there now who's on his 2nd day in the ER. I talked to a woman yesterday who's elderly mother waited 3 days to be moved into a room on the 7th floor. I talked to a ER nurse from Cologne who said their hospital is just as crazy as our hospital. But literally, when I walked in last week, I swore we were in a war zone. They were lined up everywhere. So I'm just really concerned that we're talking about the rentals going on for another 4 years and how that's going to alleviate the chaos there that your staff is working in. And then I'll have my supplemental.
Yeah, that's a great question. So a lot of the work that we've done around, I'll just start with the EOC, is about access and efficiency through the emergency department. And we have seen some successes in bringing those numbers down of admitted patients in the emergency department. And to answer your second question, we do fully appreciate that that area is under pressure with the renovation. But as we move through construction, there will be areas that'll be able to open up. So right now, I'm going to say is kind of the tough time. For over the course of this year, it will be quite a small floor print, but then we'll be able to open up a new space and then move to the next one. So then we'll continue on with the mental health and the trauma bays and then completion. And we're actually, we're in dialogue about how we're always trying to get the construction done as fast as possible. But we also want it done right. So we want to make sure that the teams get what they need and the end product is what the frontline, the patients and the families want, but also for our staff.
Thank you. Your staff is doing a remarkable job. Okay, let's talk about the cancer care clinic because I feel like I was used in the last provincial election as a stand-up for the John Horgan to say, yeah, you'll get it in 4 years. Must have been some plans there if he could actually say that. And I'm assuming that IHA is just as frustrated as I am right now at this. So what I want to know is how much of this is just bureaucracy or holdups with Adrian Dix and his ministry? How much of this is just the fact that the provincial government moves so darn slowly? Because I'm hearing from people who say, why do we need a business plan? We had one 30 years ago. Cancer continues. People still get cancer. And just for clarity, I'm not referring to a cancer center because we have one on the 8th floor. I'm just referring to the oncological radiation center that we desperately need. So how much of this is Adrian Dix's ministry's fault? How much of this is just process? And when will we get this thing? Because it's frustrating, it's stressful. It's a wonderful clinic in Kelowna, but it's stressful. And we need it. We needed it 30 years ago. We're going to need it 30 years from now. So when are we going to get it? And why aren't we getting it?
So thank you for acknowledging. So cancer care does happen here, right, at Royal Inland. So we do have systemic therapy. We have great care. We have a very talented perioperative team and surgeons here that provide care every single day. So for cancer patients. So thank you for recognizing that. I can't comment, on, your previous question. What I can say is we have partners. So we work with BC Cancer Agency, we work with the ministry, and I can tell you that there's planning in behind, but nothing's been approved.
Just one more supplementary. Who makes these approvals? Is it the ministry?
There is a process behind it, and happy to take that conversation offline. I do believe there is a meeting that is being set up to discuss that conversation.
Thank you. And just so everybody here knows, we have the speaker list is Director Middleton, Sarai, Hamer Jackson, Birch Jones, Bethel, Newstater, Stamer. So we will go to Director Middleton. Thank you.
Thank you. On one of your slides previous on this, you indicated that you had recruited or you have 80 recruits in the hopper, shall we say. What I'd like to know is how much of that is a net gain? How many of you lost in the meantime? So we're recruiting 80. Did you lose 80 and you're just replacing them? What's going to be the increase that we're going to see?
So we have seen an increase. Like I said, a couple of our areas have done really, really well in recruitment and are getting up to baseline. Are we still some of our areas functioning below baseline? Absolutely. This is a great kind of, I'll say, season. This is when all our new graduates come out. So we're really focusing on, how do we, get them employed, retention and recruitment. And again, part of retention is work-life balance. Part of retention is having facilities for folks to work in. And that's really one of our focuses. It's ongoing work because it's the same challenge for many industries, not just ours.
Supplemental.
So no number available.
I can follow up and get you a number.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Surratt.
Thank you, Chair. Back to one of your slides, the colonoscopies, you said you met you're hitting above target, but it didn't show what the targets were. So
fair enough.
Is there a slide you have?
I can get to the exact number, but every year we set a target and then what we do is, of course, we want to achieve and do better. But really the point of the slide is to show that we are moving folks through the system and people are getting to, getting their colonoscopies, getting endoscopy procedures.
Supplemental.
Supplemental.
I'll weigh in on the cancer topic because it's been something, you've heard it over and over again. My concern, and with all due respect, you hear it from this board, you've heard it from the last 3 boards. What I have a concern with is I never hear IHA advocating on our behalf. You take our messages and we try to get a hold of the ministers, but it would be really nice for you to stand shoulder to shoulder with us. You're a resident of this community as well as your family, to ask for the same thing we are. It's not a big secret that we all need it, but it would add a lot of strength and it would give us a lot of confidence that IHA throughout our region is asking the same thing so we can alleviate the pressures in Kelowna and answer the dire need that we have here in Kamloops of people that are suffering, just not from the disease, but they have to travel and wait all day in Kelowna. And then they have to wait for all the patients that are going through the system and then come back to Kamloops. And I think somewhere along the line, there's got to be a unified voice. Instead of just being a messenger, we need IHA to actually be shoulder to shoulder with us. And if that can be possible, tell us what we need to do to get to that next step.
Thank you.
So I think
I
that sounds
hear
like
you.
more of a
I hear
comment.
you.
So
That's all I can
then
hear you.
that question. Thank you. Director Birch Jones online. You are now unmuted, Director Birch Jones.
Thank you. I kept pushing the button. Thank you for your report. I saw the reference to obstetrics in there, and while we have some very good public health and indeed a very good midwife here in the Lillooet area, for labor and delivery, we've tended to rely on the Kamloops resources. Could you please provide an update on that? I didn't hear anything in that section. Thank you.
So I think you're referring to the Thompson Regional Obstetrical Clinic. Yeah. So we're working closely with the physician and the teams there to work through that and the midwives. And there's kind of ongoing conversations about how to support that patient population. Actually, there's been lots of meetings and we'll continue to work on figuring out a solution to help support them.
Thank you. Director Hamer Jackson.
Yeah, I gotta apologize because I don't remember the name of the machine, but were we, was there some word of getting a couple of cancer bed machines in the near future or something like that?
I believe he's referring to linear accelerators.
Yeah, that's part of the cancer planning. Yeah, that's part of the cancer planning is radiation oncology is looking at the whole suite of cancer care, and that is part of it.
Yeah, are those beds or machines, are they ordered or something, or are they
So that's part of the planning. So nothing's been approved. And there are machines. Yeah.
but nothing's been approved on that. Is that right?
Thank you. Director Bethel.
Thank you. Thank you for taking our questions. It's it's great to have the opportunity. And maybe I'm wrong on this, but sometimes it seems like we're stealing from Peter to pay Paul. And so I look at hospitalists and I see some who were as GPs in our community, and now they're working for Interior Health as a hospitalist, and they're quite happy from what I can tell, but there's a shortage of GPs. So what is Interior Health's responsibility when they are taking GPs out of our community to work as hospitalists? What is your responsibility to help fill the GP shortage?
So you're talking about primary care providers. And so you're right, they're a human resource. There's lots of opportunities for everyone. So I think, they get to choose where they work. Maybe what I'll do is I can get Karen Cooper to speak a little bit about primary care and attachment.
Welcome.
Thanks, Tracy, and thanks for the question, Director Bethel. Absolutely. I think the key word in Tracy's answer was choice. And so we do have a family practice provider choice abundance. And therefore, we want to honor that. We want people to work where they feel called to work. And so I can tell you our hospitalist group are very committed to the acute care patients that they serve. And arguably, when you look at that model, it actually increases capacity for the family practice providers in the community to stay focused on their patient medical home or their own practice and not have that transit to and from hospital, those calls in the middle of the night and all of the things that impact their ability in the daytime hours to take a full panel of patients in their private practice. So I think it's a model that serves our community well. And I think overall, you're seeing a family practice provider shortage for sure in Kamloops. And so we are working through what's called our primary care network service plan. That is a ministry approval to bring in additional primary care resources, not just family practice providers, but nurse practitioners and the whole host of team-based care that we know enhances access and capacity in primary care. So I look forward to the implementation of that in the Kamloops region in the coming fiscal year. It's an exciting time. And I think, you know, recruiting and retaining in Kamloops is going to take all of us building a community that people want to come and work in. So I'm excited about that work ahead. I don't want to frame hospitalists as robbing Peter to pay Paul. That's where they choose to be. They're passionate about that work. And I actually think it enhances the experience of our family practice providers who own their own practice. Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. And we have Director Newstader and then Steamer to close.
Thank you to the chair. First, I'd be remiss if I didn't also say thank you for the work that you do every single day. Our hospital is the heart of our community, and I hope that what you're hearing reflected in this space is are passionate about healthcare and our ability to speak back to our constituents about their concerns and what they see as well. So thank you for your work. I am going to go back to two things that were lightly touched on, but I feel there's some lacking transparency still for us to be able to satisfactorily answer questions that we're receiving in the community. The first one is related to cancer care. We, of course, in our first meeting did fund part of that business plan. I would like some more information about.
Sorry, correction through to Director Newstader.
Yes.
That funding, when we first saw that, that was letting us know what was coming up. IH has since removed that request, which was in the report today.
Yes.
So that's 600,000.
Exactly. Thank you for the clarity. But to that point, I wonder if you could say more about that planning. What stage of the planning is that you referred to, you know, work being done? What is some of that work? Can you offer us anything that provides reassurances that we are actually moving forward with this, that this same conversation won't be happening for the next 4 years? You know, a promise that says in these next 4 years, this will be accomplished. We're in our third year. Some assurances that we are walking forward would be appreciated. And then I have a follow-up unrelated question.
Yeah, and you're going to probably get the same answer from me again. The concept, you're working on the concept plan, the planning, all that kind of stuff, but nothing's been approved. And at that time, that's just what I can share.
So supplemental to that, when can we expect a report that gives us some detail, some understanding on that very vague work that is being done? Can you tell us how many meetings are happening? Can you tell us what stage of planning? Is there a date that we can expect something concrete that we can actually understand?
Yeah, I hear your frustration, and I will take that away. I'll take that away and get back to you.
Okay, and my second question is also around maternity care. And I appreciated that Director Birch Jones also brought it up, but to be more specific, Kamloops' largest maternity clinic is set to close here this summer. That is almost half of the babies that are delivered, to my understanding, here in our community. It is terrifying to me to think of RH trying to provide that level of maternity care, particularly with the challenges that we're faced with. And just to reiterate that point, I didn't hear anything specific in there about what that work and that collaboration looks like. What is it resulting in? Because babies are going to be born in 9 months, no matter how much planning and sitting at the table we do. Can we please hear some specifics around how that will be alleviated? What does that look like? Are we fast tracking midwives? Are we doing something to support the operations of that clinic to stay open? What is actually being done? Because that is urgent and a very scary reality for families in this community.
So the clinic is fully supported operationally. That's not the issue. It's supporting the physicians and they are working through some contract issues. And then recruitment is also, again, it's another specialty, right? Recruitment and working with the midwives. And then we also have obstetric gynecologists and stuff as well to support. So we've been bringing those groups together to work through exactly what you're talking about. How does this look like as we move through and closer to the date? And so we're trying to put in supports for those folks. So there's been ongoing meetings to work with those teams specifically to support them.
Thank you, Director Stamer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks very much for your presentation, Tracy. I just wanted to touch on a couple of things. You talked briefly about, mental health trauma, and then you kind of put that up there kind of quickly. So can you explain, what kind of patients treatments we're talking about? And then are we talking about, repeat customers, systemic issues? What is that impacting our residents at accessing, immediate and important diagnostic for a specific concern? I think Director Bass was mentioning, how busy it is in there. And, I know of people that, have gone there day after day after day, trying to get treatment. And because it's not life threatening, they end up going home after being there all day. And in one particular case, after 4 days, one of them ended up having a stroke. So you can just imagine the impact on their lives now because of that delay. So I'm asking, is there ways that we can not have to wait till 2027 for those renovations? Like, what's really impacting the issues that we're having in these situations on a daily basis? Like I said, you just barely touched on this mental health trauma thing, but can you give us a little bit more of an explanation of why we're having these kinds of delays when we have people from this entire region coming in there for care and they can't get it?
So happy to take any patient concerns offline, right? Happy to have that conversation with you. Of course, we always strive for the best quality care that we can provide. I can tell you that the wait times, I'm not sure anyone's been waiting, 8 to 10 hours. That's not reflective. But I am happy to support, like the trauma care is kind of a separate thing. That's after someone's been admitted, they go to an inpatient unit, and then often there's psychological traumas, and we've added a psychologist to help support that care for that individual. For the emergency department, construction takes as long as construction takes. I think we've all been a part of that. And of course, we always try to facilitate as much as we can. I think like the next step is, like I said, really getting this first phase kind of done so we can open up some space where they have more room to work.
Thank you very much for your presentation and your time today. I just want to note as well that some of the recruitment money that we are providing is going to help bring GPs here in the next 2 to 3 months. I just received a note from the foundation on that. So just a quick update as questions have been asked today. We'll move to 5.3 regional interior health updates. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kathy Duell. I'm the Executive Director for Clinical Operations for Rural Acute and Community for Interior Health West. As Tracy mentioned, I am new to the role. I've been with Interior Health for just about 2 months. So I will ask in advance or apologize in advance. I may not have all the details for some of the questions, and will either refer to my colleagues or commit to bringing it back. I have worked in healthcare for the last 30 years in the Lower Mainland, and I am very excited. My family and I are excited to be relocating to the interior. So, now I have to learn how to use the remote. All right, so just wanted to first talk about merit service stabilization. Mayor Getz and I have been having lots of conversations about this. We are very committed to ensuring that we are delivering high quality medical care in Merritt. And that we know that the juncture of highways in that community, the emergency department is very important. So right now we are experiencing, as you've heard in some other areas, some challenges with recruiting both physicians and nursing staff. And so we're really spending a lot of focus on both short-term and long-term strategies to recruit physician and nursing staff, including looking at compensation models, using locums, using agency staff from other parts of the area. We're also really adding resources to support the site. And so, based on the work done in Clearwater, we've been talking with the nurses and the physician staff on the site and saying, how do we retain the staff on the site and what do we need to do? So we've added more 7-day-a-week nursing. We've added 7-day-a-week direct
support for the staff every day. We've added a transition liaison and a social worker. And so we really think that those services will help us to retain the staff. And obviously, we're working closely with the city staff and the ministry and our physician partners to support solutions. Just moving on to Lytton. We are quite committed to establishing a range of services in the community and to creating a new healthcare facility that reflects the needs of the residents. We're working with the Lytton residents and the local and regional First Nation communities to address the most immediate healthcare needs in a way that's culturally safe and inclusive. Right now, we are providing a variety of health services, including primary care, mental health and substance use services, home health and public health. And these are currently being delivered through the Tecumseh First Nations Clinic. And we are also soon, we're planning that will transition to a modular primary healthcare clinic, and which is located beside the Tecumseh Clinic. And that is planned to be open in summer of this year, 2023. What I really want to talk about is that we're planning a lot of engagement in the winter and spring, including both face-to-face and online engagement. And that will be our First Nation partners, our local health reps, our Lytton area residents. And we're really trying to make sure that we have a variety of strategies. So for those who are living in the area, but also those Lytton residents who have been displaced and are living elsewhere, have the opportunity to give input and feedback as well. So what we want to do is we want to hear from the community and the health partners, and this will help guide the decision about the permanent facility that will be created in the next 3 to 5 years. And I'm just going to go, our next slide is an example of our new online engagement platform, Engage IH. And this will give us information or give everyone information around the engagement activities planned. And so one place to go and find all the information. It will also allow you to input information about any thoughts that you have. And so we can put topics up there. And it's really meant to be a one-stop shop for engagement that will complement our in-person engagement activities. We're planning 2 large engagement activities in the community. The dates are just being finalized, as well as in person in all of our First Nation communities as well. Just want to move on and talk a little bit about urgent and primary care, the UPCC in Ashcroft. I think this is really a good news story. We have seen just over 1,300 patients since it opened in September 27th. Over 4,000 appointments. That means people are coming back, so they've had more than one appointment. An average of 58 a week or 340 a month. But the next slide is really quite interesting because, and just for everyone to be aware, Ashcroft is where we are piloting a virtual care physician during the times when we cannot get an in-person physician. So we are still working to recruit in-person physicians for 7 days a week. But right now we have virtual physicians with in-person nursing to support that physician appointment Monday to Friday. And we have in-person physicians most weekends. So you can see that we've seen a 28% increase, almost a 29% increase in the appointments we've been able to provide by using these virtual physicians. And we're seeing an increase in both in-person and virtual. Well, actually, we're seeing a decrease in in-person and an increase in virtual patients. The benefit of this as well is we've seen a reduction in CTAS 4 and 5, which are those less urgent clients coming into our emergencies in the surrounding places. And I just want to talk about, we're doing a lot of evaluation of this project so we can learn from it. And then we can use that learning as we go to other communities. This is what we've heard patients say about it. We've heard people really share that they really value the service. The virtual service is working very well for them, but they're able to get in and out. They're able to get appointments. And they like having access 7 days a week. On the right side, you can also see that we're hearing from our staff that it is working very well for them. The nurses are, they find using the virtual physicians and working with the virtual physicians is working very well. And so for the RNs and the staff there, it's a very satisfying experience providing this care. As I said, those are all of the updates I have. I am happy to take questions. And as I said, with the caveat, I will probably be bringing back some answers.
Director Geddes. Dr. Getz.
Thank you for your presentation, Kathy. Just wanted to take the time to say, it's been no surprise that I've been very vocal about what's been happening on Merit and working with you. For those who don't know, Kathy and I meet every Wednesday on the phone, whether there's something crucial or not. Calls are always taken. I always know that with the rest of IHA, I can get a hold of Susan, no problems. So it's been a very good working relationship, and we are starting to see some progress in the community. So I thank you for that, and I thank the IHA for that. One real quick question. We have an issue that's been on the news about a doctor credentialing in a doctor to be credentialed. One question I've asked, and I haven't had the answer to that, is how big is the board that makes that decision of credentialing? Do you have any idea how that is? Is it, from my understanding, what I'm hearing, it's one person. I think that's completely incorrect. But I would like to know, when somebody, a doctor, is being considered and they are going through a credentialing process, how many people are on that board that make that decision, and what are their backgrounds?
Yeah, fair question. I don't have the answer to that. I can say that, you know, we have a medical affairs department and it's not one person. And so, and they do want to make sure that any physician working in any of our areas has the appropriate credentials. But I can take that question away and I can get back to you.
Thank you. And Director McNair, did you have your hand up a little bit there? It seemed like you were waving a little bit, so I'll let you go. Thank you.
I'm from Lillooet, and I hear everybody talking about Lytton and Merit and whatnot. Lillooet has a hospital already, and it just seems to me, sitting here, I'm new to the board myself. It just seems to me that Lillooet's getting forgot all the time, and we already have the hospital. We're trying to help Lytton out, where we got other outlying reserves around and whatnot, and all together, I was in a meeting the other day. We have 13 communities that are on the reserves and whatnot. And it just seems to me that Lillooet is getting left out all the time on all these conversations and that night. I just wanted to make a point of that.
And thank you for that. And I don't want any of my communities to be left out. Certainly, as I'm new to the role and learning, I'm going to be spending time in every community and spending time meeting the health leaders, going into the First Nation communities, and really want to develop a plan that's encompassing all of our rural communities, so no community feels left out. So thank you for flagging that for me, and I'll be happy to have further conversation.
Thank you. And I have Director O'Connor, Middleton, South Bethel. We'll go to Director O'Connor.
Yes, thank you. So I'm from Lytton. And the last we heard about the temporary modular was to be ready for April or May. April is next week. Now I'm hearing summer. I've definitely noticed that the ground isn't being prepared, you know, for the modular yet. What's the holdup?
Yeah, and I don't have the specific details. Lisa Zedzanata, who was in the portfolio before me, she and I are just in the midst of handover for Lytton. I do know that there were things that were outside of our control that needed to be prepared. In order for a modular to go on the ground, certain things need to occur to be prepared for it. So I can get you more details, but I do know it's coming in summer now is the timeline that we are proposing. But I can come back to you.
Yes, thank you. We get excellent primary care in Lytton in the First Nation Health Building, but those people need that.
Yes.
That modular to work.
And we are very eager to have it there as well.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Director Middleton.
Thank you. You were speaking on the vital care pilot in Ashcroft. How long is that pilot running for? When will the results of that pilot be available? And if this is successful, when can we move this into the other communities? How quickly? What's the time frame on that?
And that is a great question. And I feel like I've a broken record here saying, I'm sorry, I don't actually know the answer. I don't know if there was an end date plan for that pilot. I know that we are continually evaluating and looking at the lessons learned. And I know that we are also continuing to try to recruit for in-person physician care. So I don't know that we've identified an established end date, but let me take that away and talk with the project team.
Supplemental.
Is this pilot running in any other communities in BC? Not that I'm aware of, but I do know we are using virtual care in other communities across the province. I don't know whether there's a specific anywhere else where we're using it for an urgent and primary care center. I don't know the answer to that, so I will take that away as well.
Thank you, Director Sal.
Director Middleton asked my question there. Yeah, it's awesome to see 30% capacity increase from that pilot. And
Yes.
yeah, look forward to hearing updates on when Clearwater can be part of that.
Great. And absolutely, we want to build any learnings into the work that we do going forward to really ensure we have robust primary care across our communities
Thank you.
sooner than later.
Thank you. Director Bethel.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in. Welcome.
Thank you.
To our area. So the illicit drug deaths is not just a problem in Kamloops, it's the entire region. So Kamloops has 73.8 per 100,000 deaths from illicit drugs, but you look at Lillooet at 74.7, Merritt's 92.6, North Thompson 69.1. So what additional services is Interior Health planning to help reduce the number of illicit drug deaths in the rural areas?
And that is a great question. I am going to see if I can pull Karen up here to help answer that. I do know, obviously, looking at robust mental health and substance use services across all of our sites, but we do have a network, and I don't know whether Karen can speak at all to.
No, again, that's a great question, and
Yeah.
sorry, Director Bethel, we shouldn't be so informal. So what I do know about mental health and substance use services is that we have multiple streams of service to address the issue. So two that we know are both proven in the research and we're seeing on the ground. One is the concept of supervised consumption. So not only that service, which has had its controversy in Kamloops, being available in rural, but where we're seeing the most success is really working with clients who have a desire to change their relationship with substance use. So our opiate agonist treatment is really I think, the most exciting results that we're seeing so far in mental health and substance use programming. So we affectionately call them OAT nurses in many of our rural sites. I oversee Chase, so I do know we have an OAT nurse in Chase. I know we have OAT nurses in Merritt. The other specific community details I would have to commit to getting back to, but what that is really supporting those who want to and have a desire to change their relationship with their substance use. And so I do know that is something that is offered in a rural capacity. I think, from a larger planning perspective, it would be really helpful to maybe specifically invite our mental health and substance use experts to this forum. And any additional questions, Director Bethel, I'm happy to take back to that director who's just not here today. The supplemental, I asked if there was anything additionally planned. And that's a great question. And that's why I'm going to commit to having that particular director answer that question. What I could speak to more is the Kamloops and the complex beds, the 20 beds that we have just opened this spring around supporting our under-housed populations with substance use issues to have that care team around them as well as housing. So that's another initiative in Kamloops. I know we're speaking to rural now, but again, sometimes we learn about these things in urban, and then we look at how we can expand the models into our rural communities. Thanks.
Thank you. Director Getz to close.
Thank you. Just want to respond to the illicit drug deaths and the numbers such as in Merritt and other communities. First of all, a lot of these illicit drug deaths are coming from people who have been in our town for 3 days and have transited there and died, unfortunately, in our community. What needs to happen here is numbers of actual residents who live in our town more than a week, as opposed to transients that come through. So these numbers are completely skewed. And at some point, I would hope that we have a way of tracking the illicit drug deaths. Also, with the availability to carry 2.5 now changes everything. Our deaths are up a lot with first-time users by the RCMP, but until we get a solid number of actual residents that have spent more than 1 year in your community that are dying with illicit drugs as of the transients that come through and have been there 2 days and pass away, is a number that is, I think, becoming a little unfairly used. So that's I'll help you out with that one. So thanks.
Thank you. I'm happy to take that feedback back.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions, thank you to the entire
Thank
team
you.
from IH coming in today. And we will move to new business, and I will pass over to General Manager Campbell.
Thank you, Chair O'Reilly. Given the lengthy items that we had on today's agenda, our CFO was not able to bring forward the statement of financial information, which does need to be received by this board by June. So we're proposing calling for an additional hospital board meeting on Friday, June 16th, 2023 at 1:30 p.m. So hoping that this board can move a motion that an additional Thompson Regional Hospital District meeting be scheduled for Friday, June 16th, 2023 at 1:30 p.m.
I'll move the recommendation. Speak to it. Thank you. Yeah, and just for the board as a whole, that's legislatively, we have to do that. But also it's not just everybody coming in for a special meeting. We do have a committee of the whole meeting that morning. So we'll do that starting at 9 a.m. We will then have a hospital district meeting that afternoon. So CAO Hildebrand.
Thank you, Chair. Also, just to remind you and maybe the board that I did talk to IH this morning and planning a tour of the hospital that day. As maybe the end after the meeting ends, we can coordinate that like we did last time with all the new board members. And I think that would be a good opportunity for everyone to see the new facility.
Absolutely. And I wasn't sure if that conversation had happened yet with IH, so I didn't want to get some shocked faces in the back corner. Okay. Okay. All in favor of the request of a second special meeting? Opposed? That is carried. Now call for a reset. Oh, Director Campbell.
Chair O'Reilly, if we could just move the motion to have the closed meeting while we're in the open meeting and then.
So moved. Thank you. And all in favor, going to close. Thank you. I'll now call a recess of 15 minutes. We'll reconvene at noon for the close.